Good evening, Richmond. Welcome back to If I Had a Hammer. Some of you are longtime viewers might remember some of that song from many years ago. We started If I Had a Hammer back in the first cycle of the presidential campaign when Bill Clinton was first elected. It was an organizing process for Jerry Brown, and that organizing process for Jerry Brown took all but one representative to the district convention. It was a very successful effort, and when we reached the end of it, people were begging and pleading us, please, please stay on the air. This is the first time in forever that anybody has talked progressive values. So after that, we did around an 8-year live run of weekly call-in talk shows, talking about all the issues that rose up in the day, and bringing it to you from a decidedly progressive viewpoint. I'm not looking for anybody who watches this show to expect to get your head pulled open and have anything poured in. We are going to set out a table, food for thought, and it's your job to digest it. And just like digestion of food, some of it you retain, and it becomes part of your energy, part of your physical body, part of your life, and some of it, I don't know, next morning you flush it. So if anything makes any sense to you tonight, when you get done digesting the things we're talking about, and it gives you more fullness, more vitality in your life, a better understanding for how you want to engage in the community, glory be and hallelujah. If not, you know how to flush it, and you know where the toilet paper is too. Welcome to If I Had a Hammer. My name is Alan Shinsius, and my guest tonight, we're going to talk about a wide range of subjects, but from the beginning I want to focus first and foremost on the free speech zone ordinance that's coming up at City Council. Marty Jewell, councilman from the 5th District, has introduced an ordinance at City Council. It's just been introduced and is going through the process, and the process will be that it first has a hearing by the Land Use Committee of the City Council. Bruce Tyler is, I believe, chair of that committee. I don't know whether it's a committee or commission. In any case, it's the place it's going. That will be having a hearing in City Council chambers on January 17th at 4 p.m. And that's an opportunity for people who have something to say about the ordinance, for or against, or hopefully bring out concerns about one aspect or another of it, so that in committee, those concerns can be addressed through amendment, so that when it gets to City Council, we've got an ordinance that the whole city can support and be behind and be proud of. As it stands right now, free speech is not completely limited, but definitely limited by time and place ordinances. You can only do it until dark, you can only do it here, you can only do it there. And in essence, the nutshell of this ordinance is that it would create basically a wide open free speech zone down at Canal Plaza. That's the starting place to put a discussion on the table. And I urge all of you, whether you like the idea or you don't like the idea, whether you have concerns about public safety or what doors is this going to open, whatever your concerns are, please come and be part of the conversation. And there will be more opportunities for that we'll announce in the weeks to come. I'd like to kind of open it up and go to some of my additional guests and maybe start the conversation a little bit on the whole idea of free speech and why it's, what's important about it, what difference does it make? I mean, who should have it? I've had my yap, you guys take a shot at it.
I mean, I would start by the last question as far as a part of the question of free speech, and that is who should have it. And it seems to me that the answer in a democracy is that everyone should have it. That everyone should have not only the right to exercise free speech, but also be provided, at least to some extent, with the conditions that enable the exercise of that right. Right? So it's one thing to have the legal right to express yourself, but it's another thing to actually have the power to exercise that freedom. And to me, that's part of what's at stake in this question of creating a free speech zone, is to give citizens that might not otherwise have other avenues for expressing themselves a space in which they can do so and gather together in public to have a direct conversation about what matters.
And I think that's really important, because if we claim to have a democracy, more than just a procedural democracy, where people participate in elections every 4 years, if we're to be more than that, we have to be able to have dialogues and have conversations with people that we disagree with. And I think the sign of a healthy democracy is the provision and the upholding of, and really protection of spaces to create dialogue so that people who don't necessarily agree on anything can have that conversation. And I actually would like to say that I often don't agree with many of my colleagues, but I certainly, through the argumentation process, better appreciate where they're coming from, why they believe what they believe, and it only enhances my understanding. So that's why I really advocate for everyone, whether they have artistic ideas or religious ideas or political ideas, to come and support Marty Jewell's free speech resolution, because it's very important for us as a democracy and as a city and community.
Okay. Jim, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with what both Dr. Wood and Dr. Jane just said, and I would only like to add that the way that free speech is exercised in our society today is almost anything but free. You have to get a permit to have a protest, and in that permit it is strictly designated where you can do it and when you can do it. And in a sense, that kind of limits your message to the people who are going to be in that space at that time, which will more than likely only be the people who are already sympathetic with that viewpoint. So you're kind of, the way speech is contained now, and that is counterproductive to opening up any sort of dialogue within the population. And like Mark and Jane both said, that without that, we can't have a functional democracy.
I'd like to touch for a little bit on the risk of setting off a whole bunch of incoming phone calls, but we can redirect that.
In the hope of setting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but when you hear what I have to say, I mean, this could be. So we've talked about the value and the need for protection and encouragement of. So what about the types of speech we don't like? I can remember people being sent to federal prison because they burned their draft card. I can remember people being arrested and fined and this and that for burning the American flag. I know Bobby Scott, when it went up with this great big Fox News scream machine to the national stage with legislation, Bobby Scott, our representative from Richmond in the House of Representatives, voted against the flag burning legislation and then went to a VFW post the next day. There's a wide range of things that the Westboro Baptist Church, screaming, yelling, you know, God killed the American soldiers' sons because America loves fags, and neo-Nazis and skinheads and all kinds of, to me, to my values and my taste, going back to the food analogy, very vile and you know, makes me want to gag and throw up. So what about those voices? Should we really be hearing them?
Well, it's really a slippery slope argument that I think people who promote censorship or restrictions on free speech take up. And that is that if we start to limit the freedoms of people that we don't necessarily agree with or whose ideas and opinions we don't endorse, then we're at risk ourselves when people in power don't find our views particularly palatable. There's been numerous times in American history, for example, when Eugene Debs spoke out against the war. And as you mentioned, with the draft card burning or other opinions being put out there, that people suffered because of strong-handed people in position of power who wanted to restrict that freedom. And it was always to the detriment of society and democracy. And I think we're better than that. We have to be.
So here's another little time capsule from history on free speech. In Berkeley, I forget whether it's 66 or 67, student arrested for protesting on campus. And his protest, he was passing out civil rights literature. Well, that's a time capsule.
Well, the free speech movement did take off, I think, Mario Savino in 1964.
He actually gave his speech from the top of the police car in which this student was arrested, surrounded by 5,000 students who refused to let him be taken away.
And he also spoke of the symbolism of being on top of that police car and what it represented about authority and what it meant for our constitutional rights and freedoms and what this idea of America is all about.
So, Mark, go ahead.
Well, I think I might add as well that and going back to the first question, that without public spaces in which people can dialogue, it seems to me that we lose the opportunity for negotiating what might otherwise become more extremist kinds of positions. But if we have public spaces where we can gather, then, and I'm sort of imagining this ideal situation in part, the neo-Nazi can come together with somebody who opposes their views and actually engage, at least potentially, in a conversation with each other and come to a better understanding. Without those public spaces, there are very few avenues in which that sort of exchange can take place. And again, I think there's something significant about face-to-face conversation that makes a big difference. And we have so much electronic communication that really has certain kinds of inhibiting, I think, qualities to it in terms of, and as we all know, also oftentimes encourages more extreme forms of expression that might not be the case if we're able to gather together in public spaces and have that discussion.
And another thought, and not just in terms of, the ideal, the perfect, the good would be that opposing viewpoints could come together and have civil discussions. Not every individual and not every group is capable of that.
Right.
And so I envision other scenarios whereby, extremist viewpoints come out to a free speech zone and literally the community, no one shows up. Or large numbers of people show up and turn their back in silence to them. Or a whole bunch of scenarios that is other, that are protected. Yeah. Hello, caller, you there?
Yes.
Made it just in time. Almost lost you.
How is everybody this evening?
Good, and how are you?
Great, how are you doing, sir?
I'd like to address two issues. One is your meeting with the mayor, and the second one is the public safety that you were talking about.
Okay.
First of all, the only interest the mayor has in all this, because I've been watching all on the traffic cams, I've been watching on the news. If ever there was a more peaceful gathering, I don't know where it has been. It has been in Richmond. The problem the mayor has is, his big bicycle race contract is hinged and claused upon the back of a civil unrest clause. Now, nothing y'all is doing wrong. The civil unrest is him pulling those dragons in to throw you guys off the street. And so I would like to lead into that for the public safety issue like you guys were discovering. This ain't 1968. There's a lot of high-tech stuff out there that you can get. If you're planning on staying and not moving, there's a lot of stuff in the sports department stores that you can use. Go out and get yourself a big fluffy coat. Do some smart things. The thing that concerned me the most was the Monroe Park situation where most of the females were dressed like they were going to a club. When that stuff starts, you can lose a kidney and be on a dialysis machine for the rest of your life in a second. If you're going to put yourself between the truth and the force, let's just say, prepare yourselves. You have the technologies to do it now. Like I said, it ain't 1969. You're going to go down and you're going to be beat and you're going to get arrested. But take as many precautions as you can for yourself when you're putting yourself on the line for our freedoms.
Okay, before you go on,
God bless, good work, and I'll listen to the rest you got to say.
Well, I'd like to hear before you go your thoughts. Did you leave yet?
No, sir.
Specifically on free speech and this proposal to have a wide open free speech zone down at Canal Plaza, 24/7. Available for anybody, no fees, no charges. What do you think about that?
I think the mayor sold you out to the Euros, man. And all the businesses behind him that hope to profit from this don't care what happens to you or how it happens to you.
Okay.
Y'all are the biggest thorn in that contract. I wish you well, but I sense the worst.
Okay.
So, God bless, prepare yourselves, and don't let them make you back down. There is nothing you have done to break the law. You are standing right there like they did at Lexington right now. Get that in your heads, okay?
I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Having been arrested once and heading to court on my second charge, I agree fully with him, but the reality is that the courts are an instrument of
The state.
the establishment and the system. One thing I would like to say to the caller and to listeners and share with you guys is that on this issue of be prepared and not man up weapon-wise, but protective-wise, I feel like the city, despite what they did and the stupidity with which they did it, which was great, huge dollar value of property damage to Occupy equipment. The only property damage that's occurred in town so far as a result of Occupy being here was done by the city itself when they took it down. The police command and structure already could have done something very different. We know plenty of cities, we've seen all the videos and the news reports where something other than what happened in Richmond. So from my viewpoint, on the night when Monroe Park happened, there was some concern, and there were some people who kind of followed along with his thought process, and you know, vinegar-soaked bandanas and masks and this and that.
Felonies.
You know, felony charges, you know, were issued to 2 individuals. The police did advise us before they took action. It was mic check with the group. How they came to still have them on, I don't know, because I wasn't there at the time. But the point I'm making is that unless and until the authorities here in town show me that they're heading down a road other than what they've been on in terms of the relatings between us well in advance and on an ongoing basis and still on an ongoing basis, I feel it would be disrespectful to what they've already done to all of a sudden start, you know, showing up with tear gas masks and, you know, protective vests or, you know, really taking a very, you know, assuming the worst is coming. More confrontational. And I'm also pleased that they came out, relatively speaking, in street police clothes. They didn't come out armed with, you know,
Riot gear.
And gas masks
SWAT teams.
and shields. And, you know, they came out in their street uniforms. And that, I think, is a testament to something that's happening in Richmond that comes out of its history of being part of some dark deeds in the past. And our police chief being, despite being an instrument of the mayor's decision-making, making a commitment to do this in a civil and proper way.
Well, the SWAT team was available that night.
Oh, I'm sure.
There are witnesses that have, on that night, who said they saw the SWAT vans driving around. Of course, they couldn't look inside them, but one can assume that there were officers prepared. I think the real question that should be asked here is why is the police department spending so much money to silence people from supposedly trespassing on public property? I believe that the current the current price tag on the silencing of free speech in Richmond over the past couple weeks in reference to the occupation has been over $30,000.
Yeah,
So
definitely over 30. I had heard the original figure of Canala plus a 30,000 for the night of Monroe Park.
Yes.
I heard it as 2 separate figures, but
So probably
it
around
could have been.
50,000 now.
It could be up to 50,000. I really haven't had a chance to track down, and I don't. Of course, all I have is news reports, and we all know how perfectly news gathering works. I mean, I've seen stories that, like the current Tea Party story.
Right,
Fair
and I think
balance.
that's
But I have seen a $30,000 price tag, and I thought that was for the Monroe Park night because it was X amount for the city, and then finally somebody got the price tag from the state police, which is $13,000 for the state police alone on the night of Monroe Park.
Did any of you guys want to add to that?
I was going to say, you know, I mean, for those of us who were at either one of the sites at which the state troopers showed up, I think any citizen who would have been there on that evening would have been shocked to see the number of troops, the number of police officers and state troopers that showed up, and you had to remind yourself, why are they here? They're here because there's 50 to 100 people who are gathering in a park to have a conversation.
Legally.
And the difference
Legally
at that point, right?
Right,
At
completely.
Festival Park.
Festival Park downtown, legally. You've got 50 to 80 state troopers.
There are 80.
On top of
80
on
state
top
troopers,
of.
right on
Yeah.
top of the Richmond Police Department. I think most citizens would be outraged to see that their
Yeah.
tax money is being wasted
Yeah.
on trying to, I'm not even really sure what at that point, to intimidate and leave people the feeling that this is not a place that they can gather, even though, again, they were gathering under illegal circumstances. And I think what that suggests, and something we should take very seriously, is the extent to which there has been a crackdown on the effort of citizens, ordinary citizens, whatever their political perspective, to gather together in public spaces across the United States. And whether it's the Tea Party being charged this outrageous amount of money to gather together at Kanawha and then being audited right away, it looks a little bit suspect, or Occupy movements and a whole number of others. In fact, what we're seeing is a dramatic crackdown on the effort of ordinary citizens to exercise their First Amendment rights. And I think that's something that we also need to be addressed. And again, that all citizens who defend the Constitution should be standing up and saying something about and speaking out against.
And beyond the occupiers or the protesters themselves, we have a whole additional layer of repression and squashing and trying to wipe out and prevent media coverage.
Right.
Yeah.
You've followed some of the reports.
I have, and I'm really glad to hear you mention the problem.
Since we're on media, and this is people's media.
Yes,
but,
I'm really glad to hear you mention the problems with the local media coverage as well. I mean,
right. Both, yeah. From just shoddy, pathetic journalism and just not even getting the basic facts of the story.
Correct, and also just this very unadversarial approach of the media to power. I mean, they're very differential. They don't really ask the hard questions. Everyone should know with full transparency how many tens of thousands of dollars all of these law enforcement operations have cost taxpayers.
But okay, so in the case of the local journalisms, they weren't there. They're picking up copy from someone else and repeating the inaccuracies and fallacies that are in the first copy, and they don't even know what questions to answer. For instance, I'm told that down at Festival Park there were not only Richmond police in huge numbers, and nobody's asked for what those numbers were from the Richmond police. Nobody's asked not just what the numbers are, but what divisions. Mounted police completely and totally turned out. All the canine dogs completely and totally turned out.
The helicopter,
How many? The helicopter,
airplane.
the airplane. And nobody's even asking about the Henrico police cars and who was riding in them and what was that price tag. No, and finally they got around because I'm told, and again, I've heard ranges from 40 to 80 state police cars, two state troopers per car, coming down there.
We have video
and
of
they
that,
came down to Festival Park because our police command structure and our city government structure did not even realize that they were absolutely legally permitted to be in Festival Park until 3 o'clock in the morning. When they rushed down there and surrounded them, Occupy liaisons met with police command and said, we're legal in the park until 3 a.m. And it took them, I'm told, nearly an hour before they could confirm that with officials at City Hall. Now that is, I'm sorry, that's the right hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. It's not even right hand not knowing what, this is the right hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And that's not untypical for city. They got outsmarted and outfoxed. And then they relocated from Kanawha over to Kanawha to keep them from going in there when they left at 1:30 in the morning. And they weren't going there. They were going to a 24-hour day space down in the Canal Walk. So that $30-some thousand plus the things that nobody's bothered to track down as journalists. So they get the story so totally right. You have not seen this story the way it happened in anywhere.
Correct.
Not in any media outlet.
I would have to give props and respect to the Commonwealth Times reporters who have actually spent more time in total than probably all of the local media combined.
Yes, I would agree.
I mean, I think the reporters, their photographers, they've done a better job trying to be curious about all the details that you pointed out were omitted in the local corporate media.
Well, I've got a bone to pick with Commonwealth Times. I mean, I've been trying to get home delivery for a long time now. You talked about what Commonwealth Times is.
Yeah.
It's the independent VCU
Yes.
student newspaper. They have it online, I believe, at commonwealthtimes.org.
Okay.
Shameless
I was just trying to get a little focus on the fact
No, I
that
appreciate
it is a campus newspaper, and
Yeah, it is.
unfortunately, there's no home delivery.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I don't get around campus very
Yeah.
much these days.
And speaking about this nation's early commitment and really valuation and appreciation for independent media and really trying to get out there a plurality of voices, I recently finished a book by John Nichols and Robert McChesney called Death and Life of American Journalism. And in that, I learned that in the early years of the Republic, there were massive subsidies for newspapers, but for many newspapers. So instead of the kind of media monopoly newspaper families
Yeah.
that we have now,
I think there's 7.
where there's only like 7 major
Holders of media.
There's 7.
Correct.
I believe there's 7 companies that control almost all media.
correct. But before there were hundreds, if not
Yeah.
thousands, and the plurality of voices, the diversity of voices that were available to citizens at that time, you could have a newspaper that had represented your perspective. And I think we've come a long way from that as we've allowed the free market to sort of grow ever more metastatic.
I'm sorry, I can't accept that phrase, free market, when it comes with regard to media, because there's no freedom in it. I mean, it's just been gobbled completely up during the Bush years.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally gave the keys away to the public airwaves and removed restrictions that had been in place forever
But that's
regarding
been-
the public airwaves, and they turned it over to their corporate buddies.
But that's been going on for
Yeah.
several decades. And in fact,
That is the free
the
market, brother.
Telecommunications Act that was passed during the Clinton administration only facilitated and catalyzed that happening.
Right. I want to
So-
make one other point on the national media, and that is arresting journalists despite being credentialed
Got a caller.
and hold on, caller, we'll be right with you. Despite their credentials and their obvious, clear identification of who and what they were, arrested,
Targeting journalists.
targeting journalists, limiting them, locking them into press zones that they can't leave in order to keep them away from where the action is. That clearly was nothing that ever should have happened in the United States of America. Let's go to caller. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing today?
Very
Doing
good.
great. How are you doing?
I just got one quick question, and I'm going to hang up, and I want you to answer this for me. Is there a reason why y'all went to the mayor's house instead of the governor's house?
Good question.
Good. Yeah.
Good
Good
question.
question.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who feels comfortable enough answering that question?
Go for it.
I believe, I can't speak for the whole group, but I believe a lot of people were very disappointed in the mayor's reaction to the occupation movement, especially because he likes to center a lot of his campaign rhetoric around an idea of civil rights and social justice. And he came down to Kanawha Plaza and promised us that he would not raid or encampment until he has spoken with us further. And I believe it was 2 days later, maybe 3 days later, in any case, before he had made any further contact with us or us with him, we were raided, and we felt that was a stab in the back to us, not just as citizens, but as having a verbal contract with the mayor. And it was offered to us, and Raymond Boone offered his property to us, and when, at that point, we asked the mayor if we could have a space without the threat of being arrested to express our First Amendment rights. And when he denied that again, we decided to occupy his lawn.
And we haven't ruled out the possibility that we'll be visiting Governor McDonald or Eric Cantor
Yes, I
or
would
any of the other representatives and politicians that we would like to hold accountable for their failure to respect the constitutional limits on their power. It's unconscionable, again, the kind of tactics that we're seeing from governors and mayors across the country, but especially locally here. So I don't think anyone's ruled out the possibility that Governor McDonald won't be held accountable.
I'd like to come back to the mayor issue in particular, in the sense that many people have been calling out for some vision from the man.
Yes.
And
To take a stance, too.
to take a stand. The reality is, hold on, caller, we'll be right with you. Reality is that he basically has said, my hands are tied, I can't this and that, I'll consider proposing and supporting, and yet his hands weren't tied for 15 days.
Correct.
But he got pressured, and I understand the political tug of war, but if we're going to have truly a high, clear, moving forward resolution here in Richmond that can show an example across this country and around the world, this is how you do it. We need him to step up with some vision and be part of this visioning process around this free speech ordinance.
And
it's essential. And if not, then he's saying something about who he is and his lack of vision or capacity.
And
in the
leadership.
moment. And
It's-
leadership.
it's a failure
Everybody
of
wants to
leadership.
talk about a Tier 1 city, but the only Tier 1 status that's currently happening in Richmond is the independent, front edge, grassroots, cultural and political creatives. Low power FM stations. You still there or did we lose you?
Call it?
Call back. I'm sorry, caller, but please call back. Low power FM legislation passed because of the crusade that happened out of Richmond, that front edge of a Tier 1 status. The crusade for low power FM ended up winning legislation when everyone said it would lose. And at the first wave of stations that went on the air, there were 1,800 independent, people-controlled, nonprofit radio stations went on the air across this country. That's front edge. That's Tier 1. It's about time that the mayor shows some vision, and the city itself, you know, in its corporate. I mean, First Fridays has never gotten a dime, not one dime, but they'll pass a meals tax to create this great, big, huge base downtown for the opera, for all the upper class cultural things. There is cultural benefit in First Fridays. There is cultural benefit in a whole range of things. The mayor has a lot of options, and it's not just the laws. He has a bully pulpit, and he has a chance to show vision or not, and that's what, more than anything else, is needed.
And also a solemn obligation to uphold the law of the land, which is the Constitution of the United States, which explicitly states that we all do have the right to express ourselves and peaceably assemble.
And along that point, I think the Constitution should be remembered as not just a document that gives us the freedoms, or at least articulates what freedoms we have, but it clearly demarcates what line people in power cannot cross. That was the very issue that people had with King George at the founding of this country.
Exactly.
King George had stepped the line so many times on so many various infractions.
Like a 3-penny tax on tea, for instance, right?
Sure. But that should be clear to everyone, that the Bill of Rights clearly articulates what public officials cannot do.
Which is to say, abridge free speech, for example.
Correct.
Right.
And in a sense, too, what better state to take a strong stand on the question of free speech than Virginia?
Home of Thomas Jefferson.
Home of Thomas Jefferson, whose early drafts of what become, in fact, the First Amendment were written right here and first passed right here in the city of Richmond. So we have a mayor who was deeply involved in the civil rights movement, understands very well the importance of people's having the power to speak out and have their voices heard in public spaces. And so I think it would be perfectly appropriate for the mayor to take a very open stance in favor of creating a space in which people can gather and exercise this right that, again, is the legacy in many respects of one of the most important figures in the history of Virginia.
One of the things I'd like to point out is that the mayor was pretty clear at the meeting. You were there. I've seen the video of it.
Yes.
He was saying, well, my hands are tied and I can't this and I can't that. And yet we cited, I forget the exact codes and subsections, where it says that the Director of Parks and Recreation shall be able to, has already the authority to set aside the normal
Conduct.
time restrictions at his will.
Correct.
At his will.
He has that discretion.
And yet they said, oh, but no camping is allowed. Camping isn't prohibited anywhere in any of those things. Camping is not spoken to in any way, shape, or form. So
Camping's not the issue.
But it is. It was to them. That was the final thing that they said, well, we can't do it because camping is not allowed. And yet, for decades, once a year, we have a massive encampment in a city park. For decades. A huge. It may not be permitted because there's no permit process, and camping is indeed not permitted, but camping historically is, has been, and will continue to be. And if they try and stop allowing camping in a city park, I will protest very loudly. And you know where it happens? Arts in the Park every year. Great high civic good. If there's civic good in artists and craftspeople coming together in a city park and camping for a weekend to show off their beauty, their passion, and their joy, and for the public to come and see it and buy it and support these artisans, and I believe there is very high civic good, local, non-corporate. There's endless. I could talk for years about that one time. But if there's a civic good that provides a way for the city to allow camping, I propose there's got to be at least an equivalent civil good to what Occupy is trying to get their hands on and shake out some solutions and some new directions.
I like
Feedback,
that phrase.
am I crazy?
No,
Have I lost track of something here? I mean, they've been allowing camping in parks for decades.
Yeah. Not in a political context, though.
No, but civic good.
And that seems to me, too, to be part of the discussion for us, is to address to some extent, why is it that there's been such a strong response to this particular form of camping across the United States? I mean, in other words, I think part of the discussion is the response on the part of mayors across the United States, which has not been entirely uniform.
Correct.
There
No,
have
it's
been
not.
some municipalities that have said, this is great, we're going to go ahead and approve an ordinance that in fact makes it possible for people to gather in a public space 24/7 to express their views about whatever issues they'd like to talk
I
about.
just saw Charlottesville today. The mayor's got his own Facebook page in there with the assistance of the Rutherford Institute.
Yes.
They're beginning a process of exploring the exact same thing that Richmond is about to begin with threshing sessions and community input, and the Land Use Commission on January 17th is a perfect opportunity for everybody and anybody who has ideas on how, not how to stop a free speech zone from being created, but how to make it the perfect free speech zone that ever has existed.
Right.
Clearly, Dave Norris values free speech.
And there's vision.
Yes,
there's
and
a
there's
man
vision.
who's showing clear
Yes.
leadership and vision. And again, I call out to any, not just the mayor, but I mean, for God's sake, our city council people.
Right.
I mean,
Anyone
instead of a
empowered.
knee-jerk, no, well, it's public, it's this and that. Sit down and let's thresh this thing out. Let's have an exchange of ideas instead
Yes.
of knee-jerk overreaction. It can't happen. It's not, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear.
And I think along that point, it would be a great show of confidence in the community of Richmond.
Oh, I trust the citizens of Richmond to get it
Absolutely.
right. I'm not sure
Me
about
too.
our elected officials, at least not all of them.
If the city council were to create the zone of free speech, it would show that they believe
Oh,
in the
truly,
public
truly.
as much as we do.
So that whatever objections they have, I know we're smart enough and bright enough in this town, and that includes them. I'm not dissing them
course.
in any way, shape, or form. But you get into patterns and habits, and the knee jerk or the gut reaction is, no, I don't want to go. But set that aside. Let's
Right.
sit down and have a thorough conversation and figure out how we can make this the best that exists in the nation. We can do it.
And as I say again, I think Occupy Richmond is the only game in town that can help Mayor Jones make the city a Tier 1 city.
Absolutely.
We are the 24/7 anti-poverty commission. We don't work by the hour. We have so many ideas that we're considering that are on the table that have probably not even been considered. That have,
Oh, I got my own hat full.
So that's what I'm talking about. Is that let's work together, but at the same time, let's proactively, courageously move forward.
Caller that we lost before, please call back. I'm sorry. That was I got.
Alan
My mouth
Brad.
got out of control, and
the
I'm sorry we
first
lost
time.
you. Not the first time, but I promise this time I'll stop whatever sentence I'm in the middle of and put you on. I want to come back to the media issue
Yes.
because I talked about media, and I talked about Tier 1 and front edge cultural, political creatives.
Yes.
Richmond, for independent media, is so kick-ass out front. I mean, with the largest low-power FM listening pool in the nation, having led the crusade,
know that.
we're within the footprint of that signal from the station. It's 500,000. It's the largest. The closest one is a suburb of Sacramento, California, and they're around just under 200,000 within their listener footprint. We're at 500,000 within the footprint of WRIR. LPFM, 97.3 FM, from Monday through Friday, 9 until 5, all independent media on the air, and it's available online, WRIR.org, for internet listening, free speech radio news, Democracy Now! The lineup on there is just mind-blowing. Additionally, name some other ones. RVA Magazine, Cultural and Creative, Front End. There's, I don't even know all the ones, blogs and online stuff going on. And the one that I have recently come across, which I am just absolutely in love with, is reader-supported news on the internet.
Oh, yes.
Here's my caller. I said I would go for it, caller.
Oh, hey, sorry. I just wanted to call you guys back real quick. Really enjoying the show. And for you younger guys, listen to your elder on the end. I mean, I'm probably a little bit more quick to aggression. No, I want you to point the finger. Don't try to ripple the water in an unpeaceful manner. I understand that, okay? And I support him above that. But the same mayor he's trusting right now has $1.7 million in his pocket. And if you look around, that is supposed to be to renovate the place you are sitting at. That place is a digital crap hole. And he's done this much to shut down your freedom of speech. Think about what he would do to you in the street. Because we have been trying on this, a lot of folks, for over 3 years, and we are worse off than when we started.
Oh, I remember
Keep
the
that in
days.
mind.
I know this battle goes way back before the current mayor. It seems like, I don't know what they're doing with that money that they're getting for cable taxes from Comcast into the city's treasury, and there's not a lot of people down there can actually tell us where it goes. I've known about this for a while, and like I said, I got a number of things under my hat. Come first of the year, you know, something's going to get taken down, taken apart, and put back together again. Watch out. Watch for it.
I agree with you.
Join in.
It goes back to the beginning of time, but it only takes one man with a lantern standing up.
Yep.
Good work, you guys. I'll shut up and keep watching and enjoying the show. Thanks.
I don't recognize your voice, but I know I'm going to find out who you are. We'll be in touch.
I was going to add, too, that it just seems to me, following up on some of the comments about becoming a Tier 1 city and your discussion of the creativity going on in the city of Richmond, I think it's one of the things that people
particularly in media, but
media, the arts, and music. I've lived in Richmond now for about 14 years, and I think it's a bit of a gem that a lot of people who have not come to the city don't know about. And what makes it such is, again, I think in large measure, all the creative energy that's going on here. And so one of the ways in which you can really foster that even more, it's a small investment, is to create a space in which people, again, can gather together and share their ideas. It's perfectly fitting for a city that wants to draw that creative energy in and make it a place that is welcoming to a wide range of ideas and provides public spaces for people to express those ideas. That can only benefit all of us to address the kinds of questions that Dr. Jane is talking about in terms of poverty, but also in terms of creativity on a wide range of
welcome,
things.
caller. Welcome to the show.
Great point.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, Alan?
Good.
This is Jason Brown with Occupy the Hood.
Hey, brother. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
All right. Yeah, man, I'm glad to see you guys on TV doing your thing.
Yep.
Right on.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah. What's up,
Yeah,
brother?
I'm gonna meet with you in the morning. I'm gonna try to get up there with you guys Saturday.
Great.
And we hammer out some stuff because the black community definitely needs to get involved with this. And I just don't know what to say about you. I'm just so proud of you guys right now for having the meeting with the mayor and the whole nine. Man, I'm just still bubbling about that.
Well, I want to say some call out to you because you're praising
Yeah.
Occupy Richmond, and you know it's appreciated, and it deserves.
We have a lot of work to do.
But
And we
you
need your
also
community
need a little shout out to people because
Yes.
I want you to tell people how to get a hold of Occupy the Hood, which is the group that you started
Yeah.
organizing right after Occupy Richmond got started. And I've heard some of the things that you've been talking about. I've looked at your online stuff, and you've been involved in trying to get felon restoration projects going, getting community gardens in the different neighborhoods throughout the black community. Give us a little bit of background on what's going on with Occupy the Hood.
Please, brother.
Well, Occupy the Hood is basically, we're trying to just get the word out, trying to educate the people about what they can do, what organizations are already in place that we don't even know about because they don't advertise them. And a lot of people in our community don't have cable. They don't have internet access. So, you know, we have to really physically go out there and talk to them, and that's what we've been doing. Right now, we're in the process of giving them a voice, so to speak. We have a document that's called The Voice, which basically gives people, even people that have felonies, they can actually fill out this form so we can find out what their needs are in their community and stuff like that. So we're just basically getting everything together so we can have something to fight with, and knowledge is the key.
Okay,
and
so
if you guys,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if you guys want to check us out, just go on Facebook.com groups Occupy the Hood RVA, and you can check us out and see what we're doing.
Okay.
And everything, and we believe in total transparency. So everything that we do, you know, we videotape everything so people will know exactly what steps to take.
Meeting the Occupy standard.
Yeah.
And is Occupy the Hood is networked with other Occupy the Hood sites as well?
Yes. We're with IFE and Malik in New York.
Great.
And we've been talking to those guys, but right now it's basically we have to come up with our motto, I guess you would say. That's what they've been hammering out, just trying to get our demands listed and everything.
So for those people who might only have cable, who don't have internet, is there any other way for them to get a hold of y'all? Do you have any regular meeting place or anything scheduled up and coming where people can just show up who might be listening but not have computers?
Everybody to you guys. We've been sending everybody to you guys because we don't really have a place to really gather together like that. And plus, there's a law in Richmond. If too many people gather together, they can call you a gang. So you know, we're dealing with that over here in the South Side. So.
All right, great to hear you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Got some great stuff to talk to you about.
Keep up the good work.
All right, God bless you guys, man.
Bye, Jason. Yeah.
I wanted to add too. We've been talking quite a bit, obviously, about the issue of free speech, and not as much about the content of the speech that we're referring to in particular. And I think it's essential for us to keep in mind that at the core of the Occupy movements is a deep commitment to making visible many of the issues that are facing people in this country that are otherwise almost entirely ignored by our political officials, by our educational officials. Across the board, those issues are not paid much attention to, if any attention whatsoever. So our Congress right now is debating how to cut the budget, but has virtually no discussion whatsoever about employment, or unemployment, I should say, in this country, and underemployment, and low wages, and the growing number of people that are living in poverty and trying to make ends meet, and the growing number of people who don't have health insurance. And the list is very long. And so the speech that we're talking about here is speech that is attempting to try and make visible those issues and deal seriously with them in a way that the media, again, our politicians, don't have much to say of any serious content. They spend a lot of time.
They have a lot to say, but they don't have much for solutions.
And not much for solutions. I would say not all that much to talk about. I mean, I think it's striking that, for example, when Barack Obama ran for the presidency, that he virtually never mentioned the phrase poor or poverty or working poor in this country, and he certainly was not alone in that respect among those who were running for public office.
They've been test sampled that turns off voters. Frank Luntz and his whole thing to the Republican governors, giving them keywords not to say, and BS, spin that turns everything around in a way that makes people say, well, you're not supposed to talk about taxing the rich. You're supposed to talk about taking wealth away from the job creators.
Right.
I mean,
right.
So it's really a war on words and
double speak in a way.
Double speak, very Orwellian.
Yeah.
Beyond that.
Absolutely.
Jam. Sorry,
Yes,
I'm thinking my Turkish friend, Jam.
It's okay.
You had some information on events that are coming up. We're getting close to the end here. I want to make sure that anybody that's watching has a chance to know about upcoming events and activities, and then we'll return to chit-chat once we get through it all.
All right. Tonight at 9 p.m., there is a social event at The Nile, located at 309 North Laurel. There's going to be some spoken word artists there, and we will be taking clothing donations for the homeless population in Richmond. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. at Festival Park, Occupy Richmond is inviting everyone in the Richmond community to come and talk with us. We are going to be all ears that night. We want to hear criticisms, suggestions, and reservations and different viewpoints you might have towards us. We really want to help we want this to be a complete holistic community movement. We don't want this to be a movement of some.
And I think that's really creative, because a lot of people are going to be out on the street tomorrow with the Christmas parade, which ends up right down there in the same neighborhood. So when the end of the Christmas parade comes along, join in a parade at the end of the Christmas parade to go down to the Occupy soapbox at Festival Park.
Yeah, please, we want to hear your viewpoints. You're a part of this as much as we are, even if you aren't out there.
Exercise your First Amendment right.
Yes.
Free speech, soapbox at Festival Park at the end of the Christmas parade tomorrow. It's a really sweet idea. And I think we're going to get some important input and feedback.
Yep. And the week following that, there is going to be there's going to be a National Day of Action. The weekend of the 9th, 10th, and 11th. On the 9th, there will be a benefit show with dancing and music, and that more details of that will be posted later as they come. On December 10th will be the actual Day of Action. When there's more info on that online, if you want to read about it, there's several actions taking place during the day that we're planning. And then after that, it's going to reconvene at Kanawha Plaza for the Humanitarian University. With guest speakers that will be announced shortly. And, on Sunday the 11th, there's going to be nonviolent conflict resolution training for everyone there. It should be very valuable. If you want to find out more information, you can go on the Facebook, or you could go to occupyrva.org.
And the Facebook address is, again, facebook.com/Occupy Richmond. That's one word, no hyphens or spaces.
Okay, so the other thing is, most people, like me, I mean, I should be able to do those HTTP and all that, blah, blah. But I go on a Facebook search.
Sure.
And when you go on a Facebook search, you find a variety of Occupy Richmond stuff. So what should people be looking for so they get to the one true Occupy Richmond as opposed to the faux Occupy Richmond?
The one that has
Facebooks.
the most amount of friends.
Over 9,000.
Over 9,000.
Yes.
Hit 9,000 this week, Wednesday, about 11 o'clock in the morning.
Correct. And I believe the icon for that is the fountain over down at Kanawha that was designed by Ira Birch.
So yeah, it's a pyramid-shaped Occupy RVA graphic on the true Occupy. There's another one that has a lot of appropriate information. There's another one that has something else, and not even Occupy stuff. It's a personal Occupy website. It's occupying someone. It's someone occupying their own mind in a way that really is not. We also have online donations. Does anybody know where the online donation is located? Is that on the website?
Yes, that's actually a WePay.
But the entry to the donate is on the website again.
Yes, and you can actually Google search this. If you just Google search in the field, WePay, that's one word, and then also Occupy Richmond, one word. That will take you straight to the WePay website. It's like PayPal, only it's ethical.
Is that American, Chinese, or French WePay? Is it OUI pay, or is it
WEPAY?
Is it WEPEI, the Chinese?
As in we all pay.
As in we
together
and pay, but all one word.
Occupy together, we pay together.
So, but it is on the OccupyRichmondVA.org webpage.
Yes, and it should be available also the first couple of hits.
Similarly, for those who may not be computer savvy
for those
or
who
trust going on.
Those who are not computer savvy.
There's a mailing address on the website.
And you can always call 804-396-4997. Once again,
can you tell us what the phone number is?
That's
the Occuphone.
That's
it's basically the Occupy hotline. If you do not have access to the internet and you do not have access to a car to come down and be there, you have access to a phone, you're more welcome to call that number. Once again, it is 804-396-4997.
That's the Occuphone.
And Alan, I believe you had some contacts in the religious community that you would like to perhaps speak more about regarding the Sunday GAs. I believe this Sunday we are having a General Assembly.
At the Quaker House.
At the Quaker House at 4500 Kensington Avenue.
That's at the corner of Commonwealth. That's out, if you're on Grove, you'd be down around by Mary Mumford. If you're up on Broad, it's right in by the Chevy dealer where the Lowe's used to be.
Is it 4,500 or
4,500.
Okay.
45.
Kensington at the corner of Commonwealth.
And
Runs
everyone is
parallel to
welcome.
Westmoreland.
Everyone
It's
is
wide
welcome.
open. But yeah, there is a group that's formed to do bookings for weekend facilities for Saturday workshops. Winter's coming, snow, and you know, we all know, I mean, we can have beautiful weather sometimes all winter long, but we need indoor facilities, you know, minimum 80 to 100 people. Some places we may be looking for larger than that. But if you're a church, if you belong to a union, if you have a neighborhood organization, or you know of places, again, the OccuPhone number is 804-396-4997, or you can go online to Occupy Richmond Facilities Booking, Occupy Richmond Facilities Booking, and give us a heads up. We're looking for more places. I know that Mark, you're working the Unitarian Church on lining up some dates, but union halls, meeting places, if you know of any place, if you're involved with a group that has space that would like, the thing is, really nice about it is that y'all won't have to travel across town to find out what Occupy is or meet some of the most wonderful people on the planet. We'll come to you.
Yeah. Going back to the discussion earlier, though, I think it's kind of strange, not strange, maybe appropriate to point out when you do live in a society where free speech is limited, we have problems with leaders that don't have vision and with our media not properly representing us and our values.
Well, I think
Speaking of media, I got to go back to reader-supported news.
Yeah.
Oh man, I read a piece this morning by Dan Rather on reader-supported news. Go to reader-supported news on the internet and punch into the search Dan Rather. He just rakes him over the coals, and the last sentence of it is, "We've just gotten used to this."
Wow.
And he gives raking over the coals a litany, the failure of journalists to uphold even the basic tradition of pure original journalism as our founding fathers saw, and as it existed for a long time. It's a recent development that and journalists themselves are. But he talks again about independent media and independent journalists, and reader-supported news on the internet is fantastic.
you mentioned Democracy Now! Earlier,
Yes.
Right.
and I just want to
Another
give
one.
Giving a
another
plug.
shout out
Yeah.
or plug
Amy Goodman.
for Democracy Now! And Amy Goodman and Juan Gonzalez. You can access their website and their daily segments at democracynow.org. Other websites include therealnewsnetwork.com. And I'm sure we'll have other resources.
And also to mention that 97.3, our own local community radio station, which leads the nation in terms of the size of the pool. 97.3 actually runs Democracy Now!
8 a.m.
Every morning, Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning. So you can listen live to Democracy Now! From 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning.
And
Again, I
contribute to
highly
that pool.
recommend it.
And at the same time, they're also available WRIR.org.
Yes.
You remember that because it's Richmond Indie Radio.
Wonderful.
WRIR.org on the net. I want to thank you guys. I had a great time. I mean, the stuff we cover, I mean, the hard part about it is all the stuff we didn't get to.
Yeah.
Right. Next time.
All the stuff we didn't get to. Thank you one
Next
and
time.
all. Next Friday night, we'll be back on again. Not sure exactly what the developments will be or exactly where our conversation will go. But if it's Friday night at 7:30,
Let's invite
you
the
can
mayor
be
next time.
sure. I would invite the mayor always. Let's run some more Johnny Cash and June Carter singing "If I Had a Hammer," if you would.
Nice.
Roll 'em.
If I had a hammer, I'd a hammer in the morning, I'd a hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd a hammer